Okay, today we're going to talk about trigonometric functions. Okay, and in regards to triangles specifically. Okay, now you guys might have seen this before, but on some calculators you have these three buttons: sine, sin, cos, and tan. Okay, sin, cos, and tan. All right, and they represent three trig functions that help you in various ways. Okay, sine, cosine, and tangent, they're called. Um, in geometry, we could solve for specific angles and sides of a right triangle using these trig functions. Okay, sine, cosine, and tangent. Now, if we're given an angle, or if we have an angle, let's say angle A right here, okay, it's a specific amount of degrees. Angle A um, has a relationship to each side. All right, now each side, we always have, this is the hypotenuse, okay, because it's across from the 90-degree angle. And then we have the two other legs, okay. In accordance with this angle, though, we call these two legs specifically as the angle relates to it. So we call this side the adjacent side, or the adjacent leg, and we call this leg, the other leg, the opposite leg in relationship to this angle A. Okay, now if we had angle B, okay, we still have the hypotenuse, all right, but now this leg across from angle B is the opposite leg, and this leg would be the adjacent leg, all right, in accordance with B. All right, remember, adjacent means next to. All right, so this side is next to angle B. This side is next to angle A. All right. All right, so those are the side relationships. Okay. As far as that goes, there's specific relationships in accordance with each trig function. All right. When we use sine, we refer to the opposite leg over the hypotenuse. When we use cosine, we're using the adjacent leg and the hypotenuse. And then when we use the tangent trig function, we use the opposite side and the adjacent. All right, and I'm going to show you how this works in just a second. All right, a good way to remember this, how each trig function works in accordance with each side and angle, all right, is by this acronym SohCahToa. All right, and if you can remember that, you can remember how the trig functions work. All right, so SohCahToa, sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, and tangent is opposite over adjacent. All right, so let's see how this looks with some examples. We'll go to our first example. We have an angle measurement, and we have two sides. Okay, now if I look at this angle measurement, I have the opposite side and I have my hypotenuse. Okay, now what we're going to do is go back and let's see which trig function deals with the opposite side and hypotenuse. Well, that's sine right here. Deals with the opposite side in relationship to the hypotenuse. Okay, so what we're going to do is say sine of the angle equals opposite over hypotenuse. Okay, so sine of the angle, which is 25 degrees, equals the opposite leg over the hypotenuse. All right, and you could solve for x with these trig functions. Okay, we're not going to come out with an answer for this section. All I want you guys to do is be able to get x by itself. All right, so we're not going to do the calculations. We're just going to get x by itself. All right, how do we get x by itself here? Well, we have x over 6, so we're going to multiply by 6 on both sides. And we get 6 sine times sine 25 equals x. All right, if you want to calculate that out, do sine 25, calculate sine 25, and then multiply it by 6. But this is all I'm concerned with right now. All right, next one. We have our 50-degree angle. Okay, and now we have the adjacent side, the side next to it, and the hypotenuse. All right, which trig function is adjacent over hypotenuse? That's tangent. That's cosine. All right, cosine of the angle equals adjacent over hypotenuse. So cosine 50 equals the adjacent side over 9. Okay, solve for x. We multiply both sides by 9. So we have x equals 9 times cosine 50. All right, on this line right here, I want you to write an E. And then I want you to erase it, and I want you to write an O. Okay, next example, we have this angle here, all right, and we have the opposite side and the adjacent side. Well, which trig function deals with the opposite and adjacent? That's tangent. Okay, so we're going to go tan of the angle equals opposite over adjacent. Opposite over adjacent. All right, so tan 32 equals x over 2. Solve for x. Times 2 times 2. So we get 2 times tangent 32 equals x. All right, a couple more. All right, and I'm going to give you different looks here. Okay, so we have opposite and hypotenuse again, because our angle's here now. So we have opposite and hypotenuse. That is sine. Okay, sine 35 equals opposite. In this case, opposite is 12, and the hypotenuse is x. Now, how would we solve for x here? Okay, we can multiply both sides by x. So we have x times sine 35 equals 12, and then we could divide both sides by sine 35. So you get x equals 12 over sine 35. Alright, now the easy way to do this is you have this ratio right here, and instead of multiplying both sides by x and canceling out, what you could do is just switch x and sine 35. It's a quicker way to do this. Alright, next one we have our angle right here, and we have our adjacent side, and we have our hypotenuse side. Alright, adjacent over hypotenuse is tangent. So you have tangent 28 equals 11 over x. Okay, and again we have the x in the denominator, so let's just switch it. So we get x equals 11 over tangent 28. Alright. Next one, angles 61. Okay, we have the adjacent side and we have the opposite side. No hypotenuse. Alright, adjacent and opposite deals with the tangent ratio. Okay, so we have tangent of the angle equals opposite over adjacent. Alright, now the variable again is in the denominator, so all we're going to do is flip tangent with x. So we have x equals 10 tan 61. Alright, last one we're going to solve for x and y. Okay, with x, we have the opposite side and we have the hypotenuse. Okay, we don't want to use y because we don't know what y is with x. Alright, so we have opposite and hypotenuse, so that's sine 40 equals the opposite side. Should draw it that way, huh? Opposite side, which is x, over the hypotenuse, which is 20. Alright, solve for x. Multiply 20 on both sides. So you get 20 sine 40 equals x. And then for y, we have, we have the adjacent side and the hypotenuse. Okay, so adjacent and hypotenuse is cosine, so cosine 40 equals y adjacent over 20. Okay, again we're going to multiply both sides by 20. And we get 20 times cosine 40 equals y. Alright, if you have a calculator with the trig functions on it, feel free to use it to see what you get for answers. You could get decimals, that's fine, but remember that those represent the side lengths. Alright, we're solving for each side here. Okay, in the next lesson we're going to be solving for the angles.